I like guys that aren't on sports teams, was all that I could manage to squeak out. So, you like scrawny guys? Georgina frowned, as if that was the wrong answer. Hey, there are some sexy nerds out there, Lenore pointed out. Like Paul Lackey. Another name I didn't know. Paul Lackey isn't scrawny, though. I sighed inwardly as their attention drifted away from me. Talking about both Dustin and Bobby made me uncomfortable. At that point, I wasn't even sure which one made me more uncomfortable. Once the talk of boys died down, they began discussing the upcoming fundraiser, a pie-throwing event to benefit children's literacy. They complained about how the sorority was making the freshmen volunteer to be at the receiving end of said pies. It's not technically hazing, but it's pretty damn close, Melody had insisted, and I couldn't disagree. Lenore had been a good sport about it and taken one for the team by volunteering. She said that it was only going to be for 3 hours, and any of the guys who saw her volunteering would instantly think she was more fun for doing so. I suppose I could see that logic, though what I couldn't see was being willing to put yourself through public humiliation just for the sake of impressing a bunch of boys. I met a lot more of the sisters of Alpha Beta Pi when I went to help set up for the pie-throwing event. Along with Lenore and her friends, I loaded up boxes full of Ready Whip and carried them to the courtyard. Thanks to all of the girls working together, we only had to make one trip. Some of the guys from the fraternity showed up to help erect the 2 wooden stands that Lenore and the other victim would be standing behind to protect their clothes from pie splatter. They were both colorfully decorated. "I'll take a pie for Alpha Beta Pi" was printed on one in bold lettering with a bunch of pies drawn beneath it. The second said, "Throw a pie for children's literacy," with the prices below it. 1 pie for $3 or 2 for $5. That seemed a bit expensive for pie tins filled with whipped cream, but this wasn't the sorority's first rodeo, so I was sure they had a pretty good idea of how much money the event would bring in. This seems like a bit of a cop-out. I picked up a can of Ready Whip, disappointed that they weren't using actual pies. It's cheaper and less messy. Lenore sprayed a glob on her fingertip and stuffed it into her mouth. I was certain she'd be sick of whipped cream by the time the day was through. "Sights, bring it in for the group picture," Lenore's big called to her. Once the brief photo shoot was over, Lenore gleefully skipped behind her stand to take her position in preparation to be pummeled by pies. The tight white tank top and pink booty shorts she was wearing had the guys that were already lined up wolf whistling, so I guess she hadn't been wrong in assuming that sacrificing herself to the pie face god would earn her some popularity points with the boys. I stood on the sidelines, watching in amusement while pie after pie came sailing her way. The first hit was hilarious. It quickly lost its magic after that. I found myself seeking out a spot in the shade to study while the event continued, knowing that the girls wouldn't be too upset for my abandonment. They were too busy engaging with customers anyway. "Fancy seeing you here." An imposing shadow stepped forward to block out the few fingers of sun that were cutting through the tree branches. I lifted my hand to shield my eyes as I looked up, though I already had a pretty good idea who was standing there. That voice had struck fear into my heart every time it had caught me unaware before. "Are you Alpha Beta Pi?" Judging by Dustin's tone, he already knew the answer. "No, I'm just here to support my friends. Some of them are Alpha Beta Pi." "Funny, I don't remember you having any friends the other night." There was a level of cruelty to his words that reminded me of when we were in high school. "Things change," I shrugged nonchalantly, refusing to be intimidated by him. "You never brought my shirt back." He gazed out into the distance, though he didn't seem to be looking at anything in particular. "Sorry, I forgot." I closed my textbook and began gathering my things to leave. "I'll go grab it right now and bring it back to you." The sooner I checked that off my list of priorities, the sooner I'd be rid of him. Permanently. "No need. I can see that you're studying." He glanced down at my textbook. You can bring it back to me at the next party. The next party? I quirked an eyebrow. Yeah, we're having one this weekend.